Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Get ready to create magic and miracles as you lean into your heart's desires. I believe not only does the heart want what it wants, but it knows. This show is a weekly deep dive into what it means to live from an awakened heart. I'll be sharing inspiring stories and real conversations with people just like you, who have turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. My mission is to show you how you too can be connected and heart-centered in every area of your life. Your journey to aligning with more love, more joy, and your wildest dreams come true starts now. Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. Today I have with us Mr. Steve Chinen. Steve Chinen, I've never met him in person, but he's become such a really key, integral part of my life and so many other people's lives. We met in the Facebook Live Challenge created by Michelle Sorrell. You'll have to check out her podcast as well, the Fire and Soul podcast. And she named him the CIO, the Chief Inspirational Officer. So Facebook Live Challenge, we go on there and share from our hearts. We're message-driven entrepreneurs, and Steve is part of that group, and he picks somebody every day and really commends them and does a live around any of their vulnerable shares, what they're sharing with their heart, what they're sharing with their soul, and he is such a really solid, inspirational cheerleader for all of us with a solid heart. And I'm so grateful to have known him throughout this time and really can't wait to actually meet him in person. But it's interesting how connected we can feel even without meeting in person. And that's what's one of the great things that can happen when we use the media, when we use technology, when we use all these sources, the internet, the right way to connect with other people. And today we actually had something else in mind, but it's interesting how these conversations go. We have an idea of what we might talk about, but then we just let the conversation roll. And we just rolled with this one and it went deep. We ended up talking a lot about compassion and forgiveness and how we need to heal trauma within ourselves by really looking at how we've had victim mindset, victim mentality. And one of the key things is forgiving ourselves for holding on to hostility towards somebody else or towards ourselves. And only when we can release ourselves from that, forgive ourselves, and move on are we truly free. Steve Chinen is a trauma coach who helps men and women energetically process through deeply rooted emotional wounding to strengthen emotional intimacy, experiencing electrifying sex lives, more on that on another episode, and cultivate positive communication in their romantic relationships. Steve has experienced transformational journey through the understanding of self-healing, trauma, forgiveness, and inner child wounding, plant medicine, interpersonal communication, and deepening emotional and physical intimacy. So this is really a great conversation. I am really excited for you to listen to this and see how the change begins within ourselves, and through ourselves, the rest of the world changes. Now more than ever, it's so important that we unify a space within ourselves, because when we do that, we unify all. Enjoy.
I love it.
Hey, Steve, welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm thrilled to have you here with us today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Nancy.
Yeah, so I gave a little bit of your background on the introduction, and I'd love to expand on, you've had 18 years of event planning, and now you have left that and you're going into transitional coaching, where you're helping women release some strong emotional trauma. You're passionate about providing your clients an emotionally healing space to be heard. I would love to hear, how do you provide the emotional space for women to be heard?
I feel it's really important, especially for a man, to be able to hold space for a woman. It's to truly understand what it means to be heard. And I think for men, we think of being heard as being physically there, but it's to really learn how to emotionally and physically be in the present with a woman, to experience what she's experienced, to listen, and to allow her to share whatever it is that she feels comfortable sharing with you, and providing that safe environment for her to feel heard, that her voice matters, that you're listening to her and you're hearing her. You're not just physically in the same room as her, you are truly being present with her. And I think we as men often struggle with that because we're often looking for um, what is the point of this conversation or whatsoever, and we're looking for ways that this means something. And sometimes just being present with a woman and allowing her to share, you may not find the meaning behind what she's sharing, but what you're providing to her is going to exponentially connect you with her on a different level that you would never know just by being quiet. But at the same time, providing her with this nurturing energy that allows her to feel comfortable sharing, and as well as acknowledging her throughout the conversation that she is being heard. So she's not feeling that she's just talking to an empty room, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so a lot of it is just holding the space because men are fixers. They want to do, they want to help. And it's not about that. It's just holding the space for her. You're being heard. Come here, baby. Let me give you a hug. Let me hold you. I hear you. I feel you. I'm here. I'm present. So that's one of the most important things.
It is. And like there's so many things that we learn throughout elementary school, through high school, through college. And that is a skill that it's not really cultivated or taught. And for men, that is something that I feel we need to be educated on,
Mhm.
especially as we navigate through high school, where we maybe start having our first romantic relationships, to then growing up to be young adults, to then having responsibilities and having marriages and being married to somebody. Like, I don't think we've really put an emphasis on that for men to really learn that. And it's until oftentimes we're taught by women, or we have a positive example from a woman who's able to explain that to us of what she really needs, that we really don't know how to listen. And it's not really something that I think most men put a focus on really learning.
Mhm.
If that makes any sense. Yeah.
Yes, it needs to be taught at an early age when you're a child. And I find that a lot of men who were raised by their mother or had a lot of sisters, they learned a lot from them. And or if they have daughters or if they have children, they've learned to listen a little more. And I think it's something that needs to be taught at an early age because a lot of them be a man. You're a man. You know, take control, do it kind of thing. Don't feel your emotions. Don't, they're not taught to listen, they're taught to do. So, you know what? I want to back up a little bit. So, I'd love to hear, first of all, what led you from being in event planning, and you've done so many things from, helping marriages, wedding planning, right? And a lot of different planning. What led you to want to decide to go into coaching and to focus on helping women as your primary form? I know you do linguistic. I can't say that word. NLP. I'll just say NLP. I know that's a modality that you're certified in, and it's one that you like to use.
Yeah, that's a great question. It was actually an evolution of many things. And the biggest part was I started to recognize things within myself that were, I think, hurting my relationships. I started to actually identify that a lot of my emotional challenges that I would have, whether it was in romantic relationships, friendships, interpersonal relationships, I had to put a mirror to myself that a lot of this, the common denominator was me. So I decided to focus on working with healing within myself, to be able to understand where all these pent up emotions of not feeling enough, my lack of self worth, whether it's to be in a relationship, whether it's to have the types of friendships that I've always wanted, or to get through my past challenges with not really having a father. And once I decided to work on myself, I started to learn that, God, there was like so much work that I had to go through in order to understand where these emotions were coming from and why I behaved in a certain way that were detrimental to a relationship, or it caused discord in a friendship, or it caused challenges in my relationships in my family. And once I started to learn these things, I started to want to learn more. And then as I started to learn where these were coming from, and a lot of it had to do with my background with my father, as well as significant traumatic experiences in my life that started off in elementary school, through high school, then as a young adult, and then through my adult years, I started to learn that there's a lot of things that happen to a person that I feel I can identify with it on so many levels, that if I didn't go through those things, which I often blamed, or I had the victim mentality for most of my life, if I'm able to actually look at what I've gone through my entire life and not blame each individual person that I felt wronged me, hurt me physically or emotionally, if I started to look at it from a different way, and I learned the tools in order to cultivate that, to have a positive perspective on it and not discounting what happened, but to be able to navigate through that and then use that as fuel to have more empathy, to have more deep connections in relationships, and to have more fulfilling interpersonal romantic relationships. I felt like I was called to do that. There was just like, it's kind of like when you fall in love and you can't explain it, but you just know. You just know you're in love. It was when I was going through all these lessons and dealing with these emotions. They were very difficult to deal with, but they were just coming out from all these years from my childhood that I've been pushing down. When they were starting to come up, and I started to see what happened to me, how it changed, and when I was able to really communicate that with other people in a way where I'm getting different men and women coming up to me going, "Oh my God, I was so afraid to say that because this happened to me. Like this happened to me as a child. But when you said that, it compelled me to feel safe, that it's okay to feel my anger or to feel my shame that I've been holding in." And once I started to see the effect of whether it's sharing my story, whether it's being able to hold space in a way where I'm holding space from a sense of I understand because I've physically gone through it. I'm not just saying I understand because I'm empathetic. I've physically gone through what they've gone through. I saw I saw like my life change because I saw purpose, I guess. I saw purpose behind everything throughout my entire life. I was either embarrassed about, I had shame about, I felt guilty about. I'm finally seeing what can happen when you finally see the lesson behind trauma, behind abuse, behind all these things that I think us as a society are afraid to talk about or to empower each other through going through it. We just are sympathetic towards people. We're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry you had to go through that." But I think there's like a lack of looking at what people have gone through and be excited that this is an opportunity for them to touch somebody that only they can touch, you know, in so many aspects emotionally, that you start to see that reason. And I'm not a cliche person, but when I started to see the reason why these things happen to me, it really grounded me to feel safe to express everything that I've gone through in a way that it's not sharing it from a victim perspective, it's sharing it for others to see what you're capable of when you look at what you've gone through from that perspective. And it was a very long journey for me to get there, but I had to go through that. Like I had to work in these other industries for me to then see what it is that I really wanted and what it is that I wanted to serve. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
You said some very important things there. And one of them is when we don't see ourselves as a victim, we have such victim mentality where we point the finger at everything else, it's everyone else that's causing us our unhappiness. And when we really take ownership of how we're showing up and how we're feeling and allow our process, allow our emotions to come up, really bring it to the surface to heal, we're stuck in victim mentality. And it's leading to yourself to a sense of empowering. So when you're not a victim anymore, you're empowered to change the way things are. And looking at life, like I just heard this other day, we're here, it's Earth School. We're here to learn, we're here to evolve, we're here to grow. And because you went through all that yourself, you experienced it, you can not just, like you said, sympathize, you empathize, you were there. So you change yourself and other people can change because of how you're changing. It encourages other people, it empowers and inspires other people to change. So that saying is true. Change begins with one person. You change yourself, you change the world. Because now they feel like, oh, he went through that. He was there. Look at him now. I can do that too. And from there, it's a domino. So now you have the purpose. This is what I'm here to do. It seems like it's the biggest pain, our biggest life lessons is what we're here to help other people through.
I totally agree with you on that, because it's like you felt that failure, that pain, that despair. Like you truly know exactly what it is that caused you to get down onto your knees and to ask for help. And when you're able to really flow with that, you're really able to surrender to those emotions, those moments, and you're able to get to that point where you're no longer in the victim, but you can kind of shift to being the observer of what you've gone through, to really look at what you've gone through from an objective point of view. It took me a long time to get there, but you're able to see all these different avenues where you can help different people based upon what you've gone through and the failures and the ups and downs that it took you to get out of there. But it's all those failures or challenges that you went through to get out of what you were struggling with, that even makes you even more relatable than just, I went through this and I became a success after that, or I dealt with it and then I did. But when people learn that it wasn't easy, it wasn't easy for me to deal with this, like coming from a background that you don't talk about your feelings, you don't express love to one another, you don't get any affection. And then to go from that to dealing with your emotions, to talking about what you're struggling with, to expressing yourself, that is something that people can relate to, because not everybody had the best childhoods. Not everybody had positive role models, whether as a child or whether as an adult. And sometimes when you don't have those types of positive role models to reinforce this types of behavior, and all you have is either a negative role model or everybody is pessimistic of growing through these kind of things, and everybody is like, you know what, this is what you have to deal with. Either you deal with it or not. But it's like when you're able to have the strength to look behind how maybe your parents were raised, or you look behind how the old friendships that you've had who've looked at things from a very pessimistic attitude, and you decide, you know what, I've had these types of friends, I've had this type of upbringing, but I have the choice. Like, I'm an adult now that I can make this choice to not think like that. It doesn't mean that they're bad people, but I have the choice now where I can reverse this types of behavior and look at life in a different perspective. And to me, it was hard because I really didn't have anybody to model from, but I had to learn, and I had to put myself in situations where there were other people that modeled the type of behavior that I wanted to strive for. But a lot of it had to do with figuring out the type of person, the type of qualities that I wanted to have as a person, and to create my own identity that had nothing to do with how I was raised or everything that I went through, but it was using all those things in a way for I can understand when people are raised in this environment, and I can explain things in a way where people who also did not have that model, they'll be able to understand it from a person who did not have those types of tools or people in their life.
Yeah. one of the big key things is you have to be able to forgive your past. You have to be able to forgive other people. And that's another thing about victim mentality is we keep placing blame outside of ourselves. So yeah, you have to forgive your parents. You have to forgive your husband or whoever put you in, whoever you're holding on to, because you're only hurting yourself when you're holding on to that anger and hanging on to it, because the event is over the minute it happens, but it's how we internalize it and carry it with us maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 years or a whole lifetime. So the only time we're free is when we release them and we forgive them. It doesn't mean that it's right what they did. It doesn't mean it, but you're releasing the hold they have over you. And then you can choose differently based on your own experiences, based on your own truth. Except only then are you free.
Totally. Because when you're able to release all of that energy that has been in your body, in your chest, in your soul for so long because somebody has wronged you or they've done something unthinkable or they just didn't know what they were doing, when you're able to release that and somehow to cultivate compassion, forgiveness, it does something to you when you're able to forgive and to release that energy. Somehow it builds this compassion inside of you that you never had before. So you're able to look at other things and go, before you start judging people and start thinking, oh my God, this person's such a jerk because they raised a fit at the cash register in Target, you start to look at it from, man, like, God, what did this woman probably go through before she walked up to the cash register? Like, is she okay?
Powerful. Yeah.
And I really learned so much compassion when I started forgiving. And the biggest one, I thought it was forgiving my dad, but it was forgiving myself, that I had to like literally scream at the top of my lungs, like, I forgive myself. And it was when I truly embodied forgiving myself, I was able to look at different situations in life and not be critical about people when they're being agitated or they're acting out. It's like, instead of thinking, oh my God, like, who raised this little brat, it's like, God, what is this little boy trying to cry out by yelling and screaming in the toy aisle? Like, what is his needs that have not been met? Like, what does he need right now in order for him to feel like he's being heard? And it's really opened my eyes in so many ways of having compassion for so many things. And especially now, it's like,
Mhm.
I can't put myself in different situations because I haven't had that happen to me, but I can have compassion. I can have compassion for what people are dealing with just based upon the sense that I've forgiven people that have wronged me. So I can have unconditional compassion right now.
Yeah. So compassion, and you're looking at somebody, it's like no judgment. Those without sin cast the first stone, as Jesus Christ had said many years ago, one of the greatest teachers ever. He was so evolved and amazing, regardless of what you believe in. It doesn't have to be tied to a religion, but he was an amazing teacher. It's putting yourself in the position, because if you were raised in that environment, you might have done exactly the same thing with those kind of beliefs that were instilled. So having compassion doesn't mean it's right. And anyone, especially now, that has done something that's wronged, it just shouldn't be tolerated or stood for, or somebody shouldn't be punished for doing something, from like holding and oppressing anybody, or taking someone's life. It's wrong. But who's to say you wouldn't do the same thing in their position, giving the set of circumstances in their life, how they were raised? So it's not having judgment for and being better than or placing yourself above. We are all at the greater level connected. We are all one. We are all of the human race. We don't have skin color. We don't have religion. Beneath that, we're pink. We're meat and bones, all of us. So it's just having that compassion, like you said, is so important, and non-judgment coming from that place is so, so, so important.
It is. It is. And like, it can come from so many avenues, whether it's releasing pain, forgiving others, forgiving yourself. Probably for me, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, besides forgiving myself and forgiving my dad, was to doing something that is bigger than yourself. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned was when me and a friend decided to start feeding the homeless. It wasn't a planned event. It was something, a friend was just, hey, I feel like doing this today. You want to do this? And we just started making sandwiches. We started getting things from Walmart. We started getting blankets, socks. I started making fried rice in little containers, and we made like 50 meals, and we got balloons because it was Valentine's Day. We just started going around LA and going to different riverbeds and start offering food. And we're not just throwing it upon them, we're asking them, hey guys, like, do you think you guys could would you guys like some food? We have some food. And the cool thing is about that is reciprocity. When
Mm-hmm.
people have kind things done to them out of compassion, they want to do kind things for other people. So we're getting homeless men and women helping us find other homeless men and women. So it's not just about them.
Mm-hmm.
They're thinking about their community.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start talking with people who have lost everything, it really grounds you to be grateful for what you have, because there's men and women out there in the world that they have jobs, they have families, they have relationships, but they have just had things happen that have caused them to do that. And that was probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, was having compassion for people, was just understanding what it must feel like to not have a place to call home, to not have a roof over your head, and to have to wear the same clothes every day, and to wonder where your next meal is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And that really grounded me to have just such an immense amount of compassion, as well as just gratitude for just the little things that I actually have in life.
Yeah. What you were just saying about how you asked them, you prepared all these things, but you didn't assume. You asked them, hey, how would you like to have that? You gave them a choice. And so it wasn't a matter of like them feeling like they're getting handouts or feeling like that they're less than. You gave them a choice. Hey, we've got these things. We're giving it to you. If you want to have them, have it. And compassion is another thing, because if you believe that we're all here and our souls chose to incarnate at this point in time, in these bodies, in these environments, in this time, that's something that their soul is going through. Like whether they consciously believe it or not, they're here at this moment, and that's something their soul needs to experience. So it's having compassion for that and seeing ourselves in them, because what they are is in us, and they're a reflection of us, even though we might not be in the streets or in their circumstances. Maybe in another lifetime we went through that. We were on the streets,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
absolutely.
Those things, they like, that is like a part of like my soul that I'm so glad that I've had to go through different things in my life to build that inside of me, that it's a part of me, that I speak that language, whether it's through listening to somebody, whether it's through holding space for somebody, whether it's expressing my love and acknowledgement for somebody for who they are. Like those qualities, those values, they hold dear like to my heart. And a lot of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, it stems from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm. So, Steve, regarding compassion as such a key proponent for people to have and to recognize, what are some of the things that you would tell someone right now to get them started on having more compassion, to be able to forgive that person that has really traumatized? They've carried this trauma throughout their whole lives. What are some of the key things that they can start today to implement to become more passionate and to forgive?
I feel it starts, it has to start within yourself, and to have that compassion for yourself and understand that whatever it is that happened to you, it it wasn't your fault. You're a good person, and this isn't who you are right now. And we may still have our past childhood wounding or wounding from somebody else, but it doesn't have to identify us from here forward. And it's being able to have that compassion and say, you know what, things are going to work out. Things are going to happen for me. And I may not be able to recognize, why this happened in my life. Eventually I will. And when it does, I'm going to be able to know. And until then, I'm just going to hold that space for that moment in my time, moment in my life. And I'm not going to judge it. I'm not going to judge myself. I'm not going to judge another person. This was a moment in my life. I experienced it, but who I am as a man or a woman is not going to be reflected by that one moment in time. It may have been very difficult for me. It may have been extremely traumatic for me, but I have to believe that that was just one moment in my life, and I still have 50, 60 more years of life left to live. And I can't let that moment define who I am as a person, as well as how I'm going to react whenever something doesn't work out in my favor or things have to be perfect in order for me to be happy. I'm not going to use this as a weight that's going to hold me down for the rest of my life. I may not be able to look at this positively right now, but I'm going to hold space for that guy, that girl that dealt with that challenge. I'm going to hold space for that person, and I'm going to have compassion for what he or she went through, and I'm not going to judge him or her.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna hold space for him or her, and I'm just gonna let him or her be, and I'm gonna do my best every day to process these emotions, to deal with it, to recognize these emotions that are coming up, and to work through them. And if it takes me a day, great. If it takes me a week, great. I know that this is going to take time, and I need to have compassion that this isn't a quick fix. There is no one step that's going to just change my world where I'm going to be completely free of emotions that have not served me. I know that this is going to be a journey, and this is going to take time. So I need to have compassion that this is going to take time, and I know that there are going to be people in my life that are going to be brought into my life that are going to support me. They're going to encourage me. They're going to help me through this process if I am able to communicate my needs, what it is that would provide to me, and to just being able to express, even when things don't make sense, that I'm feeling this and I'm not asking for any advice. I'm not asking for you to think of this intellectually, why this happened to me. I just need to be heard.
Mhm. Mhm. And you said something really important back there that is we if we don't have that compassion and if we don't release and forgive, what happens is we are carrying those into our current situation. So it's a trigger. So there's things that you just someone doesn't take out a garbage and you fly into like a freaking rage because that's, you're not you're internalizing that you haven't been heard by your dad, to come in and tuck you in because you're scared. So a lot of what happens now and our reactions to it are based on our past conditionings, things we haven't let go, things we haven't allowed to process. Because when we don't process things, we stuff it down, it's still stuck in our bodies, it's stuck in our emotional cells, it's stuck in processing it, releasing it is going to like not have you fly off the handle for something really silly. And I'm sure I know I have, I'm sure you have. We've all had situations where we've blown up and we're like, whoa, where did that come from? That's when you need to really check yourself and really look at like, because I notice triggers sometimes where I've overreacted. I'll say, I'm like, and there's a little voice like on, outside my head saying, wow, Nancy, where did that come from? So,
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that. And it's not having judgment when these emotions are coming up, and like you're like blah, blah, like, and not thinking, oh my God, this woman's crazy, like she's emotional, like, because I think a lot of stigma has come across from negatively for when people express their emotions. Women are just being emotional, and there's a stigma onto that when you express your feelings that is outside of the norm of being just stern and non-high, non-low, that you're being emotional. And then for men, it's, oh, he's doing that guy thing again, he's shutting down, so he's not expressing himself. All guys do that. And like there's this stigma that has been put upon men and women that it doesn't cultivate that feeling of safeness, of being able to truly embrace these emotions that are coming up, and to feel safe that if I just start screaming for 5 seconds, oh my God, I'm going to be judged by other people.
mm,
Or if I just sit and watch TV for an hour, oh my God, like I'm going to be thought of as that typical guy. But it's being able to cultivate that for both men and women, that these things have been ingrained in us throughout our entire lives, through our social economic status, through our relationships, through our upbringing, through what we see in the world, that the people we look up to, this is how they act, and they've been ingrained into us. But it's being able to foster that sense of feeling safe to express yourself, but to allow people to then do what they need to do to get these emotions out, but then to foster that sense of, you know what, if you need to yell, if you need to scream in a pillow, great. If you need to just be quiet and watch Netflix for an hour, great. But let's have a conversation after that.
Mhm.
And it's allowing a conversation to happen after these emotions are spit out. Like Alison Armstrong talks about like allowing somebody to just vomit in the trash can and holding that trash can for that person, but it's allowing men and women to feel by spitting into that trash can, however it means, whether it's watching TV, whether it's having a conversation, that it's okay. And I think that's a challenge that we have in expressing ourselves, is we tend to judge people instead of having compassion that they're going through something. So allow them to go through it, and don't think that they're going crazy or they're being a typical man or a typical woman. This is how they process their emotions, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, and I'll have to get that talk from you from Allison Armstrong, put in the links, because it just reminded me of one that I just heard with Coop Blackson Soul Talk. I'll put that in the show notes as well. But he had John Gray on, and talking about how it's not just conditioning. There is a biological, physiological difference between men and women. He had John Gray on. He wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And there's something, I think there was a static from Hunan, China, when this whole COVID-19 started. There were like 33 divorces a week. And then now it's 300 divorces a week, because they're confined in the same space with each other longer, 24/7. It's like they're not communicating, they're not getting along, right. But there is a difference between men and women. And when we can understand that, it makes life just much more harmonious, because we are different in that way, and we're alike, but we are different. So as I was saying, that there is a difference between men and women, not just circumstantially, but biologically. And there's testosterone and there's estrogen. And we are different in that way. And how we process things, we can't impose on them the way that we process things. And the divorce rate is getting high because we're stuck in these confined spaces with each other for longer periods of time, because this whole COVID-19. And one of the things is, when you get angry, that's the time you do take a time out. That you shouldn't have conversations when you're angry. And I've had situations in the past where a man has said to me, like, okay, I need to go away. I got to step away from this. But me, as an anxious attachment pattern, and that relationship had devolved to where I was walking on eggshells, and it was already instigated that, one little thing and he's going to leave me. So I wanted to run after him, like, wait, let's talk now. Let's talk now. No, you give it the space, process your emotions, come back to each other and talk. And John Gray was talking about how, like, if he was angry, his wife would just be like, you're angry now. We're not talking right now. Come back to me when you're not angry.
I think there's so much around fixing things that it's more about people. I think when we get into our masculine, and this is for men and women, we get into fixing things. And it's like, okay, so I see that this person's angry. All right, we're going to go fix it. And people need to process their emotions before they even get to the point where they're ready to fix a situation, or ready to talk about what it is that they're angry about. And to for a person, like often for men, like when we know a woman is angry, like we need time for us to sit in our cave, whatever our cave is, and to process what just happened. Like our wife just blew up on us. She said we need to talk, and when I hear those words, I know that I'm in trouble. So I need to process this. I need to get ready. I need to get my emotions in check so I can have a constructive conversation with her. And oftentimes, when we want to fix a situation right now, or we get anxious, that if we don't deal with this right now, something bad's going to happen. And then we put that onto the conversation. One person wants a conversation because they just want to deal with this, and another person needs to process what just happened in order for them to have a conversation. When both of those languages aren't communicating because we speak in different languages as men and women, the problem doesn't get fixed. It actually gets even bigger, because on top of the problem, now you're having this miscommunication in what each other's wants and needs are, and now you have two problems on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because now one person is not feeling heard, and one person is feeling like they're just not given enough space. They're being nagged upon, that they're ready to deal with the first problem, but now they're being nagged to do this. And men don't gravitate when they're feeling like they're being controlled, that they're being nagged upon to change a behavior or to do something. They want to do something because they feel compelled to, because they know that this is going to make their wife, their girlfriend, life easier. It's going to bring peace into her life. But when they're feeling like, oh my God, I am being told that we need to have this conversation and it's all my fault, it really doesn't motivate a man to take action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you said a thing, 'cause a lot of women do this. Nag, nag, nag. It's not going to work. Nag, making a man wrong. It's not going to work. It's just going to put him on defensive. We need to invite men. We need to invite men to become the champion in this. We need to invite them to have a solution without trying to fix things, like give them their space. So I know I've done that in the past where I've nagged. It's just not going to work. It's going to do the opposite. And that leads into, we'll have to have you on for another conversation, because I know that, there's the love languages. And it's so important for us to know what language is our partners, what language does our mother speak from, which language do our friends speak from, our children. And I know you have a really cool spin we'll have to talk about on for women, like you do it through the five senses. And we'll have you on another time. We'll dive into that, because we could be on here for another hour talking about all these differences between men and women and how we can come together, because it's so important now with how the divorce rate is going up so high, and especially now after we've all been quarantined, and a lot of people have been with their partners for so long. So, let's talk and communicate and not bring the statistic even higher with divorces. So definitely would love to have you on there another time. So right now, I'd love to hear what is lighting you up right now? What is next for Steve? What are the next projects? Where can people find you? Love to hear that.
Yeah, right now I'm really excited about just helping different men and women who have gone through some type of trauma in their life. And it doesn't have to be like something like extremely traumatic, but they're dealing with something, whether it's from their childhood, whether it's from a relationship, whether it's from a circumstance in their life that is holding them back in different parts of their relationships. And it's challenging them in ways where they're not understanding why they're behaving a certain way. And it's stemming from a certain thing that has changed them as a person, that they really can't identify with it. So right now, I'm really excited about being able to help different men and women kind of unlock where the root is that this challenge is coming from, that maybe they're projecting in different ways that they just can't put their glasses on to see it. And my job is to identify it and to help them uproot it, as well as to deal with it, and then to move through it, and then to use different levels of communication, incorporating the love languages, incorporating different ways of connecting with each other intimately, emotionally, and physically, in order to have thriving relationships. Because I feel like besides dealing with past challenges in life, you also want to strive for having a different way of looking at life, of having more thriving relationships, of being able to communicate and connect with a man and woman in ways that maybe you haven't in the past. Because we have been put on this planet to be with one other person. We're not meant to be alone on this planet. No matter how independent we are, no matter how strong we are, no matter what we've gone through as a man and woman, whether we've climbed the corporate ladder, whether we've gone from nothing to something, whether we've done this or that, Like no matter what we've accomplished, no matter what we've gone through, we are all put on this planet to be connected with another human being. So whether it's a man, whether it's a woman, like it doesn't matter. We are meant to bond with another person. We're meant to connect with a person on an emotional, spiritual, physical level that you can't foster that on your own. You can't have those things, those experiences, no matter how much money you have, no matter how many amazing friends you have, it can't be duplicated on your own. And I'm not saying to be dependent on somebody, but I want to help people deal with the things that they have never dealt with for themselves, for them to be good on themselves, be non-dependent on another human being emotionally, financially, physically. But when they're able to be good on their own, they're able to be connected with another human being on a different level because that other person enhances their life. They complement all of the things that they may not have. That person complements those things and they bring light into their darkness. When they struggle with things, that other person lifts them up, you know? And that is kind of what I want to foster in people. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now in my one-on-one coaching, that I have a discovery call where we kind of identify what it is that you want to work on, what you're struggling with, and how that deals with who you are as a person on your own, and what is it that you want to cultivate in relationships. So we kind of work from yourself first, and then we then go into your interpersonal relationships with your family, with your romantic relationships, and kind of go from there. But that's really what I'm passionate about working through with people, because for some reason, like I feel this bond with people that have gone through some major things in their life that they're either embarrassed about, they have shame of going through, or they really haven't identified it. So I really get passionate and lit up by wanting to identify that and help people see that and then working through it.
We're here for connection. We're here to go through things with someone together. And it's coming from a place where you're helping people work through their own shit and come to a place of wholeness where it's not a need to fill some space with somebody else, but to invite them into your life that's already rich and full in two wholes coming together where we uplift and support each other. And it sounds like from your perspective, my perspective as well, and I think it's a divine perspective for us all to be united with another soul, right?
Absolutely. I absolutely agree on that. And when we have somebody in our life, like it just makes the journey like so much more meaningful. You know, when you close your eyes and you're cutting that ribbon for opening up your first brick and mortar store, whatever it is, you open your eyes, your significant other is right there with you. You
Yeah.
know, when you have gone through several banks to get a bank loan because you just couldn't get it, and you get that one bank that believes in you, and you come home to your significant other, and you share that with him or her, and you see how excited she is or excited that he is for you, for experiencing this, knowing that she or he has been through that journey with you when nobody believed in you but this one bank believed in you. To share that experience, that is something that you cannot buy, you can't get on your own. No matter what you have in life, no matter what you accomplish, you can't get that feeling of knowing that you have gone through something so dramatically in your life, or you have done something that you feel so accomplished, you're so proud of. When you don't have somebody to talk to about it outside of your family and friends, it, for some people, it takes away that that
Mhm.
feeling of, oh my God, this is so worth it. I crave this experience, and it's not even about everything. It's, I got a chance to share this experience with somebody else. Like he or she saw where I came from. Like I was struggling with my emotions, I was struggling with this or that, or I didn't have the money. And to see me now, to see me 2 years later, to having my own business, or to see me now, I'm completely dealt with my traumatic past. And knowing that she was there when I was so insecure, when I was so clingy, when I didn't know whether or not I was worthy of her love, to know that she was there from the beginning, and now where I know that I'm worthy of love, I know that I'm capable of having a loving, compassionate, productive relationship, knowing that she saw me then and she sees me now, those are the experiences that you'll never forget for the rest of your life.
Mm-mm.
And that's the one thing that I've learned, is that our relationships, they're the most important thing that you'll ever have in your entire life. More than your purpose, more than your career, more than your drive to make this world a better place. Who you have in your life and how much love you put into that person, how much love that person puts back into the relationship with you and makes you feel that. Like, there is really nothing else that comes close to these relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe in that.
Also, the love that you're feeling for someone else, like that is coming from within yourself, that you're seeing a reflection of your love in somebody else. They're reflecting it back to you and vice versa. And there's something, it's like unity. It's like the closest you can get to God besides orgasm. I'm just kidding.
Oh my.
That's another subject. Because that you lose yourself. You're going outside of your body for a moment. Yeah, that unity with someone else, sharing a sunset, or just, I've been single for a couple of years. Oh, I'm ready for that partner. Everything you talked about just now just really opened my heart and gave me that feeling of it. I just picture sometimes when I'm laying in bed, just somebody being wrapped around me. And those moments can be some of the most beautiful moments. Like, you don't want to be anywhere else. Nothing else can replace that. It's that connection. Like you said, there's nothing more important than that. And it's wholeness with ourselves where it all begins. And then therefore you're able to connect with another person and have those beautiful experiences. And, whatever it comes, it comes. So be with the right person, choose correctly, do all the inner work, do the processing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like you have to have everything figured out in your life in order to have a thriving relationship. It's understanding where you're at in your life, and people gravitate towards your energy. So if you're coming from a sense of insecureness, like, you're going to put that energy out to the people that you're hoping to attract, and they're going to feel that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know that you are gravitating towards certain types of behaviors, personalities, that's definitely something for you to develop that self-awareness inside of you, that, hey, I am only attracting narcissistic men or women, or I'm only attracting people that only care about my body, my looks, or what's in my bank account. These are the types of people that, for some reason, I'm attracting. I'm the common denominator. So because this is constantly happening to me, that is another indicator telling me that I should be recognizing this. And do I want to have these types of surface level relationships continuously? Is that going to fulfill me? Or do I need something deeper than that? And if I do, who do I need to be on my own in order for me to attract that woman, that man that has all those qualities that I want for her? Because if we're coming from a sense of insecureness, of lack, or just only caring about surface level things, and we're not caring about that person's values, that we're not caring about how these types of principles this person lives their life, or what this person wants in life, then we're not going to attract that person if we're putting out this types of behavior or this types of energy. And that comes from working within ourselves. And if we're not willing to work on ourselves, then we can't complain about what we don't have in our life. And we need to take ownership that because I don't have these types of relationships, I need to look at myself and ask myself, why don't I have those relationships? And not just say that, oh my God, there's no good women out in the world, or there's no good men. There's a million of men and women out in the world that are single, but until we do the work and have those types of qualities that we want for ourselves, and not for another man or woman, for ourselves, then we're going to be able to see the people that are going to gravitate towards us. Because relationships should just flow. They should just happen. They shouldn't be like two forces going against each other. They should just happen, and it should be not easy, but it should just flow just very simultaneously, and not be something that one person's doing all the work and the other person's not doing anything.
Mm-hmm. And I had heard something once, I forgot who had said it, that relationships are hard, they take work. He's like, no, I don't want any part of that. They should be intentional. So, just take that out of our language. They shouldn't be hard, and it shouldn't be a struggle. All right, Steve. Well, it's been wonderful having you on. I'm just going to wrap up with our last question that I ask everybody that comes on. What is an awakened heart to you?
An awakened heart to me is being able to look within yourself and to really be happy in your own skin, to know that everything flows through your love for yourself, your love for others, your love in what you do. And until you're comfortable in who you are as a person and all of your imperfections, all of your struggles, everything that you may have nitpicked that were the cause of things that you may or may not have had, when you're able to be truly comfortable in who you are as a person, from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes, to what flows inside of you, your body type, your looks, your ethnicity, everything. When you're completely able to really embrace who you are as a person, to be comfortable in your own skin and to be happy. If I am who I am right now through the next years of my life, I'm happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is an awakened heart.
Comfortable, being comfortable, acceptance
Mm.
of self, not being perfect, but accepting and loving yourself for it. Awakened heart. Well, thank you, Steve. It was such a pleasure having you on. I definitely know we're going to have a part 2 talking about some of those languages. And until then, have a great day. Thank you again so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate that, Nancy.
Okay. Bye, Steve.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Awakened Heart podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, head on over to your favorite podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can reach me at theawakenedheartpodcast.com.